I was ready to buy a home, but then the mortgage rates changed. This is what I've been hearing from people the past couple of weeks. And honestly, I'm not surprised that I've been hearing it because the news has in some ways been telling the truth. Mortgage rates a little bit have gone on the rise. However, as always, the news isn't telling the full narrative. I want you to look at this graph with me just for a second. As you can see, this graph is mortgage rates through this year. Now what you can see is the average for 2022, mortgage rates have been 4.6%. Right now we're hovering around a 5.9% mortgage rate. So obviously 5.9 is a little bit higher than what the average has been for 2022. And so the news is acting like rates are going through the roof. But this is really not true. Now, another thing that's feeding into that is in December of 2020, we saw an all-time low for interest rates. Now, I think you know why the interest rates dropped. It was because of the pandemic. Things were unlike we had ever seen them before. And hopefully we'll never see things like that again. And so in December of 2020, we saw interest rates go to as low as 2.7%. And then again in 2022, leveled out a little bit, we saw the average at 4.6%. Okay, and now we're seeing them at 5.9%. And so the news, although telling the truth that rates have begun to rise, they're not telling the full narrative. I want us to go to this next graph. As you can see, this graph is the last 50 years of mortgage rates. Now, do you see something different about this graph compared to the last one? That's right. The average rate on this graph over the last 50 years is 7.77%, which is a special number. The average rate, 7.77%. So when we look at the last 50 years, 5.9% right now, that's a good amount lower than 7.77%, the average over the last 50 years. So you tell me, is 5.9 a bad interest rate in comparison to history? I don't think so either. Now here's the other thing. In 81, we saw an all-time high. In 81, we saw mortgage rates over 16%. So to bring it all back, when you look at this graph for the last 50 years and you realize that the news maybe has told us some funny things the past few years, maybe we shouldn't be listening to the news about when and why to buy a home. In reality, mortgage rates being at just about 5.9% is a great rate. And it's a great time to buy a home, especially since listings are starting to pop up. And we've had a 20% increase since last month in listings in Denver. So there's more choice. We're still at a great rate. And one thing that we know is even if prices drop a little bit, they're gonna come back up. Now is a great time to buy. Reach out.